Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode. So today I wanted to kind of have a little story time where I was going to talk a little bit about how I actually got into like computing. For example, my first computer was actually an Apple IIe. I'm not too sure if many people may remember what it was, but it was made by a company called Apple Computer. It was a gray, colored, kind of like the beige, computer. It had a monitor and it had a keyboard all stuck together, very similar to the iMacs. But we also had like a large floppy disk. The disk was probably like this big, and it was pretty thin. You can kind of like literally make it flop. So it was basically why they had the term floppy disk. And I got this because my uncle at the time was working for the Boys and Girls Club in Harlem, and when they refreshed their computers with the newer versions, they just gave a lot. They gave a lot of the things away. They donated it. So I got it, from before. I think it was my birthday or something. It just came to the house, and we had different games. One was Oregon Trail. I had this Paint game. I think like kind of like Photoshop, very primitive version of Photoshop. I also had Math Blaster, and but one of my favorite games of all time was Agent USA. And Agent USA was one of those games that was really interactive. One of the things that made me really like the game was the train, that you would get on the train. Well, let me talk about I'll talk about the actual game. Basically, the game was like you are this secret agent who was supposed to help prevent the world from becoming infested or invaded by these fuzz bombs. And these fuzz bombs were a term that they would give a person that would get infected, pretty much. And they would have to go ahead and to get rid of them and to cure them from the fuzz bomb attacking the person, they would use these crystals. Now these crystals were pretty much these like diamond-shaped images that if you place one on the ground there, after a couple of seconds it would start to grow. Now you would need to grow these crystals and then use the crystals to kind of turn people back from a fuzz bomb back into a human. Now the game had a very weird AI system. So every minute or so people were moving around, so objects would constantly float around the screen. It was great, very early programming methodologies, so but you kind of like had people would get on the train, would walk around from different states, and it was actually entirely the state of the United States. So each person would get on a train, and you can and they would get off the different trains, and as the train would travel from one station to another, time would actually go by. So the more time that went by, the more the infestation would take over the entire country. So your job was to try to find ways to get around the country without causing the entire country becoming infested with the fuzz bombs. So like the fuzz bombs also walked around with like the people. It was kind of like a very early zombie. The fuzz bomb creatures actually looked like TV sets, like the snowy screen, and that's what's kind of like what was going on. And if the fuzz bomb touched a human being, the fuzz bomb would actually turn the human being into a fuzz bomb. And then that was how it was continuing to affect the game. And it makes funny sense. Like it was kind of like the game of life, like you ever heard of that algorithm where if people were considered like dots on the screen, if certain dots if two dots would, I'm not gonna go through that one. I don't want to go through that. That's for another video. But one thing I want to actually talk about the video is about the game is that it was one of the games I played the longest on the Apple IIe. One of the things that was great about it was that I would try to see if I can grow huge fields of crystals, and I wanted to make sure that. And then one thing about it, that the crystals, people would collide into them and collect them. So you would have to kind of like keep pushing people away, so that way you can grow enough crystals so you can collect them and then use them to grab other fuzz bombs. Now, if the fuzz bomb touched you while you had the crystals, I believe a lot of your crystals would get taken up. And if you had no more crystals, then you get turned into a fuzz bomb. And the cool thing about it is that the game didn't like end. Like you would just be a fuzz bomb roaming around the screen. And hopefully, if you ran into somebody who had a crystal, because there was a chance where somebody else, a person who would be walking around, could plant a crystal or drop a crystal, and if you bumped into the crystal, you can turn back into a person. And the thing about it was that while you were a fuzz bomb, I don't think you can get on you can get on the train. I'm not. It's kind of like fuzzy, with, listening to that. But the cool thing about it was trying to get around the different states and plant as much crystals as you possibly can. And the thought about, could you save the entire country was great, because every time you got to a different state or a different station, they would have like a banner showing you how many states were infected, and you couldn't go there and deal with that thing. And it was just cool. Like, today we're in a different time where like you see the same thing, people are infected and stuff like that. But Agent USA was a really good game, and I definitely will probably see if I can come up with some of the video footage so I can kind of use it in this video, so where you can probably find a little bit more about it. You might not have an idea what it is, or you can just Google it and figure it out yourself. But yeah, that's just one of the things I want to just talk about. I might have more YouTube videos where I share clips about my ideas or thoughts or my past time, whatever. And hopefully it's all engaged in the same type of situation. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next video.